lecture we will see the transportation model for aggregate planning. In the previous lecture we saw the linear programming formulation for aggregate planning. We considered demand data for 12 months or 12 periods. The linear programming formulation had several sets of constraints. We had one set of constraints where we added the production to the beginning inventory and then we subtracted the demand to get the ending inventory. We also had another set of constraints relating the regular time production, underutilization and capacity, and we had a third set of constraints involving the workforce. Now we are going to describe a transportation model which does almost everything that the linear programming model does. There are a few differences which also we will see as we move along. We take a much smaller example to illustrate the use of the transportation model, and towards the end we also try and show how the transportation model would behave if we considered the same example involving 12 periods. Now for the sake of illustration, let us assume that we are considering 4 periods as against 12 periods. Each period say is a month, and for the sake of illustration let us assume that the regular time capacity and overtime capacity are the same and are known. So we will have regular time capacity let us say is 2000 and overtime capacity is equal to 500. In the last lecture we saw that it is customary to denote all these as man hours instead of units. So each month we assume has a RT capacity of 2000 and OT capacity of 500. So totally a capacity of 10,000 man hours are available in the entire production period. We have 4 periods, so let us have the 4 demand values. Demand is also represented in terms of man hours. So let us say the demand values are 3000, 3500, 1500 and 2000, and let us say it is 1500. So let us now try and draw the transportation matrix for this. So the transportation matrix will look like this. Now each month there is a supply of 2000 which comes from regular time capacity, and there is a supply of 500 that comes from overtime capacity. So there are So there are 4 periods. So each period has a regular time capacity and an overtime capacity which are the supplies. So we will say that first period 2000 comes from RT, 500 comes from overtime capacity, again 2000, 500, again 2000, 500, again 2000 and 500. as I mentioned, in this particular example we are assuming that the regular time capacity is 2000 in all the months and overtime capacity is 500 in all the months. In practice it can be different for each period, as we saw in the tabular method. The overtime capacity and the regular time capacity depend upon the number of days that are available, and therefore they can be different for different periods. Now we have to meet the demand of these 4 months with these capacities. So we start drawing the 4 demand columns. So the first period demand is 3000, second period demand is 3500, third period demand is 1500, and the fourth period demand is 1500. So the 4 period demands are written as 3000, 3500, 1500 and 1500 respectively. Now we have created the basic structure for a transportation problem. Now we all know that we always solve balanced transportation problems. Therefore we have to find out the total supply and the total demand. Total supply is 2500 into 4, which is 10,000. Total demand is 6500 plus 3000 is 9500. So it is customary in transportation problems to balance it, and in the event where the total supply exceeds the total demand, we create a dummy demand column so that the total supply becomes equal to the total demand. In situations where the total demand is higher, we would create a dummy supply row. So in this case the total supply is higher than the total demand, so we create another dummy which has a dummy demand of 500, so that we have a balanced transportation problem. Now we have assumed here that there is no initial inventory. So if there were an initial inventory, then we would have one more row and the initial inventory would act as a supply. Right now we are assuming that at the end of the 4th period we are not going to have a final inventory. So if there were a final inventory, then that final inventory would appear as another column in the transportation table. So right now we are not assuming initial inventory and final inventory, otherwise we will have one more row and one more column in the transportation table. The dummy comes so that we balance the total supply and the total demand. Now we start writing the various costs. Now if we are going to use the first month regular time capacity to meet the demand of the first month, then we assume that there is a regular time production cost which is given by R. If the first month's overtime capacity is used to meet the first month's demand, we are going to assume that it involves a overtime production cost of O. Now I call this as O, and to distinguish it from 0, let us say we call this as O. If I meet the first month's regular time production to meet the second month's demand, it means I am producing it in the first month, I am holding it in inventory for 1 month so that I can meet the second month's demand. So the cost becomes R plus I, where I add 1 period inventory cost into this. Similarly, if I use this capacity to meet the second month's demand, it becomes O plus I, where O is the overtime production cost per man hour, because both demands and supplies are represented as man hours. So let us assume the costs are suitably represented as so much per man hour. Similarly, if I use the first month's regular time to meet the third month's demand, it will become R plus 2I, and this will become R plus 3I. Similarly, this will become O plus 2I, O plus 2I will become O plus 3I. Now if I use this supply of 2000, which is regular time that is available in the second period to meet the demand of the first period, which means I am producing in the second period and I am going to meet the demand of the first period. Now, that I can do only if I allow back ordering. It means if I have to use this to meet this, then I am not meeting the demand entirely in the first period, I am back ordering, and from the second month's regular time I am trying to meet the demand of the first month. Now, for the present, let us assume that we are not going to allow back ordering, and therefore, it is a minimization transportation problem. So, it is customary to put a big M with where M is large and positive, so that we do not have this allocation and this is not allowed. Similarly, overtime capacity of the second month to meet the first month's demand is not allowed. So, automatically all these will become big M, because we are not allowing back ordering in our first assumption. Regular time capacity of second month to meet second month's demand will be R, this will be R plus I, this will be R plus 2I. The R plus 2I comes because I am using the second month's regular time capacity to meet the fourth month's demand, which means I am producing in the second month and I am keeping it in inventory for 2 periods. Therefore, this becomes R plus 2I. Similarly, this will become O, this will become O plus I, this will become O plus 2I. Now, from the third month's capacity, I cannot meet the second month's demand, because I am assuming right now that back ordering is not allowed. Therefore, all these will become big M. Now, I am using the third month's capacity to meet the third month's demand. So, the cost will be R here, R plus I here, O here, O plus I here, and I cannot use the third month's capacity, I cannot use the fourth month's capacity to meet the third month's demand. So, this will be big M, this will also be big M. So, fourth month I will have R here, I will have an O here. Please note that these are O, so that I can distinguish them from 0. Now, I need to fill the cost associated with this. In any transportation problem, it is customary to fill the dummy row with costs equal to 0. So, we put cost equal to 0 for all of these. So, I am going to write this as 0. And please note that this is O while this is 0 and they are different. So, just to distinguish that this is 0, I am just going to add a like a phi, so that we know that this cost is 0 and this is not O. So, now we have completed the cost for this transportation problem, and we now need to solve this transportation problem. Now, in earlier lectures in different courses, you would have been introduced to how to solve the transportation problem. There are many ways of solving it. Usually, transportation problems are solved in 2 stages. In the first stage, we try and get a good basic feasible solution, either through the northwest corner rule, or through the minimum cost method, or through the Vogel's approximation method. We have also seen in a different course earlier that the Vogel's approximation method is used usually because it gives a better objective function value compared to the northwest corner rule. And then the second stage, we use the basic feasible solution that is obtained to try and get to the optimal solution. Now, let us try and apply the northwest corner rule to this. Northwest corner rule is the simplest of the methods to get a basic feasible solution to the transportation problem. So, in the northwest corner rule, we start with this 2000 and this 3000. So, we allocate 2000 here. So, the balance 1000 is here. So, there is a 500. So, we would allocate a 500 here. then there is a remaining 500 which is there, which has to be met. So, in this particular example, ordinarily we would put a 500 here for the northwest corner. So, ordinarily we would have met this through this, but since we have a big M and we cannot do any of these, so we will not be able to proceed with the northwest corner rule. But now for the sake of illustration, let me assume that I am going to start with a 500 here, and then I would possibly try and improve it or make it better. In this particular example, I will not be able to, because I am not allowing back ordering. The first month's demand itself is 3000. So, the first month's total production available is 2500. So, in this case I will not have a solution because I am not allowing for back ordering. So, for the sake of illustration and for the sake of getting a very good solution, so for the moment let me say that this demand is 2000, and let us say this demand is 3000. So, that this demand is 2000 and this demand is 3000. So, now what happens is your total supply is 10,000, total demand is 3 plus 2 5 plus 3 8,000. So, the dummy becomes 2000. So, now we have balanced it. So, now if we apply the northwest corner rule, we have 2000 here, we have 2000 here. So, we will use up all the 2000 here. So, this will go and this will also go. In fact, let me also make a very minor change in the data, so that we can show a few more things as we move along. So, I am going to make this as 1500 instead of this, also I am going to make 1500, so that the demands are 6000. So, this will become 4000, 1500, 3000, 6000. So, this will become 4000. So, I am going to make the demands as all the 4 demands as 1500. So, now what happens is when I start solving using the northwest corner rule. Now, before I start solving from the beginning, let me explain to you that the 4 capacities are 2500 in each month, with 2000 as regular time capacity and 500 as overtime capacity. The 4 demands are now 1500 for me. So, what I do is I apply the northwest corner rule. So, I first get 1500 out of this. So, this column is completed, another 500 remains here, there is a 1500 here. So, I will put 500 out of this. So, this is completely met. So, this will become 1000. 1000 is demanded, 500 is available. So, I put a 500 here, this is also completely met. So, I put another 500 here, so that this is met completely. Then I put a 1500 here. So, this is met completely, this is also met completely. Then I go back and I do a 500 here, and then I have a balance of 1000. So, this is met. So, there is a 1000 that comes out of this, there is a 500 that comes out of this, there is a 2000 that comes out of this, and there is a 500 that comes out of this. So, it is balanced. So, now we have got the first solution using the northwest corner rule. Now, let us try and see what kind of solution it is. Now, in transportation problem, if we have m supply points and n demand points, every basic feasible solution should have m plus n minus 1 allocations or less, but these allocations have to be independent. If we have less than m plus n minus 1 allocations, then it represents a degenerate basic feasible solution. So, in this particular example, we have 1 to 8 supply points and 5 demand points. So, we have 13, 8 plus 5 is 13, m plus n minus 1 is 12. So, the basic feasible solution should have 12 allocations. Now, let us see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 allocations we have. It is still a basic feasible solution with 11 allocations, which is less than m plus n minus 1. So, it is a degenerate basic feasible solution, and the degeneracy comes because somewhere when we made this particular allocation, I think when we made this particular allocation, the balance of 1500 was met here and the demand of 1500 was met here. This particular allocation did not leave behind anything either in this row or in this column. Therefore, we started here with this 500. For example, when we made this allocation of 1500, we had a balance of 500 here which came here. So, only one row or one column was entirely filled or met by the allocation, but at this point both the row and column were met entirely, and therefore, both these were met and we started from here. So, we had one allocation less, and we also know that if we have a degenerate basic feasible solution, in the next method, which is to optimize it, in the UV method or the MODI method, modified distribution method, it is customary to put an epsilon to denote the place where there could be a degenerate allocation, and then we proceed. Now, let us assume that this is the basic feasible solution that we have using the northwest corner rule. We have already learnt elsewhere that if we had gone for a minimum cost method or a Vogel's approximation method, we may have got a better basic feasible solution. Right now, I have not defined what the values of R and I etc. are, so that we will not be able to do the minimum cost method or the Vogel's method here unless we know the values of R, I, O and so on. Whereas, we can do the northwest corner because northwest corner depends only on the positions and the values that we actually know. So, we are fine doing a northwest corner. Now, we have to improve this solution to try and get to the optimal solution. So, in a transportation problem, the improvement is done using two methods. One is called the stepping stone method and the other is called the modified distribution method or UV method or MODI method and so on. Now, let us try and look at the stepping stone method. Now, what does the stepping stone method do? Stepping stone method believes that if this is not the optimal solution, then there is at least one allocation which is currently blank, which means which is currently non-basic, which will appear in the optimal solution. So, stepping stone method will take each one of these blank positions and it will try and enter a +1 or a theta to see whether there is a gain in the cost. For example, this is a position which does not have any allocation right now. So, if this were in the optimal solution, the belief in the optimal basis, the motivation or the belief in stepping stone is that if I put a +1 here, then it will be advantageous, then it can enter the basis. So, if I try and put a +1 here, now to balance it I will have to put a -1 here, I have to put a +1 here and I have to put a -1 here. Now, the net gain will be plus O minus O plus I plus R plus I minus R. So, let me write the net gain. So, plus O that comes out of this, by putting a +1 I am incurring a cost of O, by taking away 1 I gain a O plus I. So, minus O plus I. By adding a 1 here I am adding an R plus I. And then by taking away 1 I am taking away an R. So, minus R. So, the net cost, this is O, this is not 0. So, O minus O minus I plus R minus R is 0. So, we observe here that if we try and put a plus 1 here, now we realize that there is not a gain, the cost remains the same. So, we try and do this. So, a stepping stone will try and see all the places where we do not have a variable, we will try and put a plus 1. Now, let us try putting a plus 1 here for example. So, if we put a plus 1 here, then we have to balance it with a minus 1, with a plus 1 and a minus 1. So, the net will be r plus 2I minus of r plus I plus r minus of r plus I, which will also be 0. So, it is not going to be an advantage doing this. But let us try and put a plus 1 here. Now, what happens? I add a 0, I subtract a 0. So, this will become a minus 1 here, become a plus 1 here, it will become a minus 1 here. Now, because of degeneracy I will not be able to proceed. So, I have to put an epsilon here. So, this will become plus 1 here, this will become minus 1 here, and then it will become, sorry, this is not the thing. So, plus 1 here, minus 1 here, plus 1 here, minus 1 here, so that it gets balanced. Let me repeat it. If I put a 1 here, so to balance it I have to put a minus 1 here, I have to put a plus 1 to balance here, then I am not able to move because of degeneracy. So, I add an epsilon here. So, to balance it I would put a minus 1 in this epsilon, then I would put a plus 1 and then I would put a minus 1. Now, the net will be plus 0, here I have to be very careful because some values involve 0, some values involve O. So, this is plus 0. So, I am going to write it as plus 0 minus 0 plus r plus I minus r plus 2I plus r minus r plus I. So, this will be, this is r plus I, r minus r plus r minus r is 0, I minus 2I minus I is minus 3I. So, this gives us a non-zero value. Let me repeat it, 0 and 0 gets cancelled, this r will cancel with this r will cancel with this r, plus I minus 2I is minus I, sorry. So, plus I minus 2I is minus I, minus I minus I is minus 2I. So, there is a gain when we do this. So, what we try to do is we try to put the maximum possible here. So, it will become plus theta minus theta plus theta minus theta plus theta minus theta, and then we realize that theta will become epsilon because of degeneracy. So, this becomes theta minus epsilon. So, the epsilon will shift from here to here and so on. We know how to proceed in a transportation problem by doing this. The basic idea is we try and solve the transportation problem. Now, what have we learnt by this? What we learnt by this is, if we apply the northwest corner rule to this, we do not know the values of r I yet, and we can proceed by applying the northwest corner rule, because northwest corner rule does not depend on the values of r I and so on. So, if we apply the northwest corner rule and then we apply the stepping stone method to solve it, we realize that under the assumptions that we have in this transportation table, the important assumptions in this table are, we are considering only regular time production cost, overtime production cost, we are considering inventory cost, we are not considering back ordering cost. So, we are considering only 3 costs, regular time, overtime and inventory. We right now do not have a beginning inventory, we have only capacities based on this. And if we apply northwest corner rule here and then we want to apply the stepping stone, we realize that all the positions, remember that when we put 1 here the net was 0, when we put a 1 here the net was 0, but when we put a 1 here the net was minus I. So, only when we put a plus 1 and compare the net gain or loss, and if there is a gain, we can proceed towards optimality. Now, when the net effect is 0, it is not going to help us in any way. So, when we apply the stepping stone method after applying the northwest corner rule, we understand that in all the possible non-dummy positions, example this, 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 this and this and this. I am not including these because these are not possible positions, because they have a big M. These are not possible positions. So, for all the possible non-dummy positions, one can easily show that the net by putting a plus 1 is only 0. So, when we apply the stepping stone method under all these assumptions, it is not necessary to evaluate it at all non-dummy, non-basic possible positions. Example, this is a non-basic, non-dummy position, but it is not possible because there is a big M. This is a non-basic, non-dummy position, it is possible because it has a value of O, but if we put a plus 1 here, then the net is only going to be 0. So, the simplification is that if we apply northwest corner rule and we apply the stepping stone method, it is enough only to consider the vacant positions in the dummy and try to use them as candidates for improvement, because every non-basic, non-dummy allowable position is going to have a net equal to 0. So, when we apply the northwest corner rule and the stepping stone, it is enough to consider only this, and proceed with the transportation. Now, this simplification is called the Bishop's simplification, and that is useful when we apply the northwest corner rule and the stepping stone method, so that the computations that are involved in the transportation is minimized and are simplified. But it is not always or absolutely necessary to use the northwest corner rule followed by stepping stone. Today, with more and more packages available and spreadsheet solutions to transportation problems available, one does not take the trouble of actually solving it like I am doing it on the board. One could simply put it into a solver and get the solution, or use a spreadsheet model to try and get the solution. But in the earlier days, when people were actually solving it by hand, the simplification was helpful because it reduced the number of computations that were there. Now, let us come back and do a few more things. Now, one of the assumptions that we had, of course, before I proceed, one can now apply the stepping stone method or the MODI method to try and get to the optimal solution for this problem. Now, let us look at some more things. Now, let us relax one important assumption, that instead of back ordering not allowed, let us allow back order and see what happens. So, when we allow back order, I am going to remove all these. So, if we allow back order, which means I can use regular time capacity of second period to meet the demand of the first period, which means I back order by 1 period. So, there is a regular time production cost of R plus a back order cost of S. So, the cost becomes R plus S. Second period's over time, to meet this, the cost becomes O plus S. Now, the third period's capacity, RT capacity, I am using to meet the first period's demand, which means I am going to produce here and back order for 2 periods. So, this will be R plus 2S and O plus 2S, and this will be R plus 3S and O plus 3S. Now, this is third period capacity to meet the second period's demand. So, this will be R plus S, this will be O plus S, this will be R plus 2S, this is O plus 2S. 2S comes because this is the fourth period's capacity is used to meet the second period's demand. So, there is a back order for 2 periods. So, R plus 2S, O plus 2S. This is fourth period capacity to meet the third period's demand. So, it will be R plus S and it will be O plus S. Now, the transportation model is complete. Please note that your Northwest corner solution is going to be the same, it is not going to change, because Northwest corner is only based on positions. So, now after from this, under this assumption where shortages or back orders are allowed, we can now use this starting solution to try and get to the optimal solution of the problem. So, the next question that we have to answer is the Bishop simplification still valid? For example, if I put a plus 1 here, what is going to happen to me? Now, when I put a plus 1 here, it will be a plus 1, it will be a minus 1, it will be a plus 1, it will be a minus 1. So, the net change will be R plus S minus R, which is S, S plus R plus I minus R, which is S plus I. So, what happens is when I put a plus 1 here, there is a net change which is S plus I, it is not 0. We can still proceed by considering that the net change here is S plus I and keep proceeding towards the optimality by applying the stepping stone method or by applying the MODI method. The only difference is that if we apply the stepping stone method now we have to, in this case there are 5 columns, 5 demand points and 8. So, it is 8 into 5 40. The transportation should have 12 allocations m plus n minus 1, but in this case it has 11, but we have added an epsilon to get 12. So, there are 12 basic variables, 28 non basic variables. So, if we apply the stepping stone method, then we have to evaluate the net increase or decrease for all the remaining 28 positions, because the simplification rule does not work when we consider back ordering. If we considered back ordering, then it was enough to do it only in 4 positions. Now, we have to do it for all the 28 positions. But as I mentioned earlier, now most of the times we do not use Northwest corner rule or we do not solve by hand. If we are going to use a solver to solve this problem, it actually does not matter whether we are going to do this, whether we are going to gain advantage of the simplification rule or we are not going to gain any advantage because of the simplification rule. But then this is also possible. Now, the transportation problem has 4 costs: cost of regular time, cost of overtime, cost of inventory and cost of shortage or back ordering. Now, let us try and do one more thing to it. Now, earlier when we did the linear programming and we did the tabular, we said there are 8 costs were considered: regular time overtime as one pair, inventory and shortage was as a pair, outsourcing and underutilization was considered as a pair, hiring and laying off was considered as a pair. Now, out of these 4 pairs which add up to 8 costs, we have now considered 4 costs. Now, can we also try and add some more costs into the transportation table? Now, let us try and do that. Now, if we look at these capacities, we have now only 2 types of capacities, which are regular time capacity and overtime capacity. So, the total capacity is 10,000, 2000 into 4 months plus 500 into 4 months. But when we did the linear programming formulation, we also assumed that it is possible to outsource and to try and get. So, outsourcing can be another capacity. So, we add one more capacity here, which is the outsourcing. So, let me So, let us add outsourcing as another capacity. In the tabular method or the linear programming method, we did not have any limit on the extent to which we can outsource. So, in principle we can assume that the entire demand of 6000 can be outsourced. So, we have the demand of 6000 as outsourced. So, in some sense the outsourcing capacity becomes sigma d, which is sum of the demands. Now, these capacities are already 10,000. So, there is a demand 6,000. So, now your total capacity is 16,000. Your total demand is only 6,000, therefore, the dummy will become 10,000. So, this part is sigma d, which is sum of the demands. This part is sigma s, which is the sum of the regular time and overtime capacities. This part is sigma s, sum of the regular time and overtime capacities. This part is sigma d. The nice thing about this modeling is that whether supply is greater than demand or demand is greater than supply, this total is always sigma s plus sigma d. This is always sigma s plus sigma d, and the moment we allow outsourcing, even in the event where we have this capacity is less than the total demands, the balance can be got out of outsourcing. Or going back to the example that we had, where I actually made a change here. Initially I had put a higher value here, and then when we were doing it, if we had put a 3000 here, and then we realized when we were doing it 2000 could come, 500 could come, because these had big M's, back ordering was not allowed, then I had to actually change this. Now, in order to have a situation where if my first month's capacity is 2500 and my first month's demand is 3000, if there is no beginning inventory, then there is definitely going to be a shortage of 500. And now, in order to meet that, we have to do one of these two things, which is either allow back ordering or allow outsourcing. So, if we had allowed back ordering, then we would have something like R plus S here, and I would have put some allocation here. If I had not allowed back ordering, this would have been a big M, and it will come here, the balance would be outsourced. So, at the optimum, the balance would be outsourced if I am not allowing for back ordering. So, outsourcing helps in multiple ways and prevents infeasibility to the transportation problem. So, we build an outsourcing. Now, the nice thing, as I mentioned, is that if we call this thing as sigma s, so this part is sigma s, sigma d, this sigma d, sigma s. Now, it does not matter whether sigma d is bigger or sigma s is bigger, we will still be able to meet the entire demand, because outsourcing is available as an option. Now, the costs of outsourcing, so let me simply call it as OUT, 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 OUT. So, there is a cost of outsourcing. So, if I want to outsource and buy something from the market to meet each month's demand, then I go and buy only in that month. So, I am not going to say plus I and so on. Every month, if there is a shortfall, if there is a way by which I can go and buy it from outside, I will assume that this is available all the time, and therefore, I will buy only when it is required. So, I have outsource as a cost that comes. Now, the most important thing is to fill this. Now, this has to be 0, because if for some reason I do not have to outsource and I can meet all my demand using these capacities, then all these capacities and excess will have to go and sit here. Only then the transportation problem is balanced. Therefore, I need to put cost equal to 0 here. This is very important. So, we need to put cost equal to 0. The next question is, if I have this regular time capacity and for some reason I am not utilizing this regular time capacity fully, which means if I have 2000 and in this row I have not allocated 2000 here, there is some allocation that comes into the dummy. For example, if you look at this, this is a regular time of 2000 available, 1000 has been utilized, 1000 goes to dummy, which means this 1000 is not utilized, which means it results in an underutilization cost. So, there is an underutilization cost here. So, there will be underutilization cost here, there will be underutilization cost here, there will be underutilization cost here. And as I mentioned, we are not going to put underutilization cost for overtime capacity. Consistently, we did not do that in the LP formulation also, as well as in the tabular method. So, there is no underutilization cost for the overtime capacity, but there could be underutilization cost for regular time capacity. So, this is an example where the 2000 regular time capacity is not utilized fully, it is utilized partly only. So, now this table uses 6 costs instead of 8: inventory, shortage, regular time, overtime, outsourcing, underutilization. So, it is able to use 6 costs. Now, we can solve this problem optimally if we want to consider 6 costs. It does not consider, and it is not possible to easily model hiring and layoff. So, transportation model can be used up to 6 costs. We do not model hiring and layoff. If we also want to put hiring and layoff into the problem, then we have to go to the linear programming model, which is capable of solving it. Transportation does not do that. Transportation also does not explicitly consider what is called the setup cost associated with the production, because every time we produce, there is a setup cost and a setup time that has to be used, and that cost is not or cannot be brought in to the transportation model. The linear programming model that we saw in the earlier class also does not include the setup cost, but there is a provision or there is a way by which it can be brought into the linear programming formulation. Now, before I wind up, I can tell you that if we go back to the example that we considered both in the tabular method and in the linear programming method, and if we modeled it as 12 periods, which means we will have 24 rows plus one initial inventory, 25 rows, plus 12 periods, 12 columns. If we did not consider the outsourcing and underutilization, we considered only this and solved a transportation problem that involved 25 rows, 12 columns and a dummy, then the solution that we would have got would be exactly the same solution that the LP optimum gave. If we added this outsourcing as one extra row and then we solved it this way, and if we had solved a corresponding linear programming problem by considering 6 costs including outsourcing and underutilization and not considering hiring and laying off, then such a linear programming problem and the transportation problem will give the same solution. But linear programming has the additional advantage of being able to model hiring and laying off, which we will not be able to do in the transportation. So, under the same set of assumptions, wherever the problem it is possible to solve using transportation, then the same solution we will obtain if we solve by linear programming under the same assumptions. But LP model is little more versatile than the transportation model. If one can solve it by modeling it as transportation, it is always preferable to do that, because from operations research we would know that the time taken to solve transportation problems can be quicker than the corresponding LPs. So, transportation is preferred wherever it can be modeled as transportation, and transportation can handle a maximum of 6 out of the 8 costs. Now, I mentioned that transportation cannot handle setup costs explicitly. So, the next question is, how do we model setup costs into production planning, and we will try and look at models to do that in the next lecture.